Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Earthen's Den. And in today's episode, I just want to really raise the question, and I just kind of want to sit in this space for just a moment, and I want to talk about the division between men and women, as well as the lack of work ethic in our youth, and just how there is a spirit and a whole surge of entitlement. It just breaks my heart to kind of see, and I question where will we be headed in the future. I can't even say that it's a men thing or it's a woman thing. However, we do have to acknowledge the fact that women are more than likely to go to therapy and to do these things. But I can't say that entirely, because I know men who are actually in therapy and who want to go to therapy and who are doing the work. But I just think that this level of division is so concerning, and I don't think that people think about the long-term effects of holding on to the bitterness and the anger and the frustration. I do think that oftentimes we'll have a negative experience with the opposite sex and we hold on to bitterness and we kind of generalize, not recognizing that everybody is different. And I just think that that's rooted in the lack of emotional regulation, right? We're uncertain on how to express ourselves and express the pain that we experience from losing that person or being with someone who did us wrong, right? And so I think unknowingly we move forward and we want people to pay a price for that. You know what I mean? And it's almost like there's so much projection in regards to that. It makes it very hard to kind of see what's in front of you, and it makes it very hard to kind of move forward in a more healthier space. I can honestly say that's just something that just breaks my heart. And I think even in today's society, back to the work ethic piece in regards to our youth, there is an illusion that social media portrays. It's almost like we're giving the youth an exposure to possibility, right? We're seeing Black people and Black faces in places that we desire to be in, but there is no backstory in regards to that. And I think that oftentimes when people do share the backstory, that's ushered out. Nobody wants to hear the truth of that. We just want to know, okay, it's a 10-step course I can take and I can be here and I can do that, And I think even in those spaces, people have to understand that when it comes to money, it's just one of those things to where, you just have to be in a space where you just recognize when it comes to money, like, hey, the more money you make, the more time you're going to have to spend. You know what I mean? And I know we talk about passive income, but I don't even think that is the level of thinking that most people are in. And when we talk about, like building wealth, like typically it is regarding physicality and you being there, right? So that's another conversation that has to be had as well. Like, people are making more money, but they're being taken away from their families. I thought about my grandparents, my great grandparents, and they were entrepreneurs, and I think about the work that they did and the things they did in their time, and I was just really, really in a space of great admiration and respect for my grandparents, my great-grandparents, because, they were very old. They grew up in the civil rights movement and just the whole nine, and they were able to acquire land in the city. My grandfather had a farm. My grandmother, they were pastors. They owned a church. They had a trucking business, and I thought about what was it that kept them together for so long. And I don't think people realize it. It's not a matter. Yes, social media plays a role, but I think most importantly, it's the values. You know what I mean? It's the values. It's the morals. It's the things that they both cherished, right? Family, God, you know what I mean? These things are being ushered out. And, you talk to most kids today, like, God is not even a conversation that people trying to have. And I can tell you right now, just not knowing God, like, you can easily be used by the devil. I'm going to just say it, like, you know what I mean? You can easily be used by the devil because you have a bitterness in your heart. You've allowed these negative, dark things to take root in your heart. And so you don't even realize it, but you're out here hurting people. You're just out here wilding, and so there's no level of accountability. And I think people don't realize that, God is so much more than just a religious figure. You know what I mean? God is so much more than that. There's so much wisdom in the Bible, and everybody, if you are a reader and you like reading books and you're into intellectualism, I can tell you right now, then this, right? That this, what I'm about to say is not going to come to a surprise to you. But when we think about the Bible, like, for example, there are so many just revelations in the Bible in regards to success and just the entirety of everything. You know what I mean? So I think that that's just, you have to realize that, like that, that's real. And I don't know. It just concerns me. Right. But I can honestly say moving through life let me say this. Moving through life with this illusion that you're not going to be accountable for anything is like the biggest setup. You know what I mean? And a lot of people don't realize it, but because you're hurt and you go and hurt others, or you are just, because here's the thing. It's one thing when you are a child, right? God tells us, when I was a child, I spoke as a child, but when I became a man, you know what I mean? I put away childish things. And so I don't think people realize that. But when you know better and you choose to do wrong, you're going to pay a price for that. And I don't think that people are talking about that. I know everybody's like, oh, karma. You think if you give somebody $1 today, then, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that's not going to come back around, but you have to understand. And I think this is, young men and young women, right? But when you're sowing bad things, when you're treating people poorly, when you dogging women out, you know what I mean? Or when you dogging men out, you are going to pay a price. You are going to pay a price. Like, you are not gonna just, you know what I mean? Like, that's just not what it's gonna be. And I think it's not even for us to judge, right? Like, yes, I do believe in having discernment, and I pray that is strengthened in all of us, right? And everybody who's listening today. But we also have to be mindful that only God knows the hearts in people. We can't see a person's heart. We don't really know, right? Like, only God knows. So I think that just being in that space alone, like, that's a real thing. You know what I mean? That's a real thing. And so I don't know. I just encourage everybody to just be mindful and, really, really start to ask yourself some hard questions. Like, ask yourself some hard questions. And I hope that this podcast just raised some level of awareness, because I just, like I said, what I see in the youth today, they're quitting their jobs, they're walking out, they're doing all these things, but they don't have any ambition. They don't have any plans. They don't have any dreams. They don't have any goals. Right. So it's almost like there's an illusion. Like, so who do you think is going to take care of you? Right. We're not even teaching them just simply how to be independent and simply how to be individuals, right? There's so much noise regarding toxicity, right? That stuff is praised, it's crazy to me. Like, I just, and people say it so commonly, like, that's not cute to be toxic. That's not cute to be, you know what I mean? Like, dealing with that's not cute. Like, I don't know who told y'all that, but that's not cute. Like, what, you know what I mean? And it's almost like people think that that's something that's going to be attractive. But to me, that's so repulsive and repelling, and I, for one, I'm not a cynic. I don't think that I've lived long enough to be a cynic, but I like to remain positive in regards to the future and things like that. But I have to say, a lot of this stuff raises a great concern, because the way what I see things and just how things are, like, it's just crazy to me. And I just don't think that these are conversations that are being had. So, yeah, I just, check yourself, like, where do you fall in that? Do you believe in that? What do you believe in? Where are you at on the, you know what I mean, in the spectrum? And, I just think that morals and values and all beliefs and all these things have gone completely out the window. Like, they are so far in the garbage. Like, it is just one of those things to where it's just like, it's not even... It's pretty much done and over with, right? So that's what I have for you guys, and I just, hey, be mindful. Like, do you believe in work ethic? Do you, like, I say that all the time. Like, what do you believe in? What do you believe in? That's what I'm going to end with. Ask yourself, what do you believe in? What are your values? And what is guiding you? Like, what is your guiding force for the reason being why you do what you do? You know what I mean? Like, what do you really feel that you have the capacity to be, you know what I mean? I think that belief in yourself is one thing. And I think that you have to believe in yourself, evidently. But I think it's an illusion when you believe in yourself, but you're not doing anything to perfect or to get better at your craft, right? And you're not even putting yourself in a position, you're not taking opportunities, you're not even moving in that direction, right? this fad and like this whole thing with entrepreneurship, I don't think people realize how hard it is, and I talked to you guys a little bit about my journey, and I talked to you guys about how I did not consider myself an entrepreneur, and I said artist because I really was trying to figure out what was it that I wanted to pursue. I had a lot of gifts. I come from a long family of like artists, and that for me was like, okay, what do I want to do with my life? And I took time away from school because I wanted to find what was it that I enjoyed the most. What was it that really, really just gave me light, and what I loved. And so my journey was completely different. It was completely different, but I did not want to be an entrepreneur. I don't think that people talk about just how much that goes into that. There's a lot of hours. There's a lot of hours that goes into it. There's a lot of discipline that needs to be had. Like, you have to set schedule for your days, and you have to make sure you're getting things done, because as we can see, November 1st, the year is over. You know what I mean? Like there is so much that goes into that. And I think the idea, people are like, oh, just start a business. And, it's very easy to start. Personally, I think anybody can muster up the courage to start something. That's not really where the problem lies. The problem lies in the continuation of that thing, right? The vision for that, the reason why you started that. Like, there's so much that goes into that, and I don't think people recognize that. You know what I mean? So I just, wake up. Wake up. And, I definitely think for young kids watching and listen, I said watching, soon you guys will be watching, but for young kids listening to this, and, maybe not even young kids, like maybe you just, you're in a space where you're like, dang, what do I want to do? I think that you have to realize that vision comes in phases. And, I learned for myself that every idea that God has given me is not an idea that should be manifested today. It's not an idea that should be put on the forefront today, right? It's not one of those things. I believe that it's things that I'm going to do in the future. And that's okay, right? And I think for myself, I'm very adamant on giving myself time to develop my craft. I give myself time to develop certain things. There were certain things that I could do, but I literally chose not to do it because I knew that for myself, I wasn't ready for that, And I think it's one thing when you have jitters and you're like, oh man, I'm not ready. But I think it's another thing where you can really sit in that space, and I think that in itself requires humility. But of course, we're no longer in that space today, right? That's why you have people who will start things and they have platforms, and you don't have the character to sustain, right? You didn't develop that professionalism because you were like, I ain't working no job. You know what I mean? So I just, I think that there are many life skills that can teach you a lot. And so I'm just praying for you guys. And I just, my hope is that you can really, really assess your values and open your eyes and figure out, where am I going with my life and what am I doing? You know what I mean? And just be mindful of the seeds that you're sowing. Be mindful of what you're sowing into people's lives. Be mindful of those things and understand that, hey, we all make mistakes, and it's okay. Like you can easily repent. Like God is forgiving. Like it's not one of those things where it's like, you know what I mean? You can easily repent and go the other way, but you also have to be mindful of the things that you are sowing, like for real. Like be mindful, because what you sow, you will reap. And I think a lot of people question certain things, right? And it's like, well, if I'm walking around, I'm hurting people and I'm using people and I'm mistreating people because I want what I want, or I want vengeance. If I, and I want vengeance for the things that happen to me, I'm going to go out and everybody's going to pay a price. Then you're going to pay the ultimate price, right? So you just have to be mindful of that. And, it's just important. Like, get a journal. I think that's a really good place to start if you don't want to be, if you don't want to go to therapy, right? If you're struggling with anger, right? God tells us not to have a spirit of anger, be slow of anger. Write down like, hey, what am I angry about? What am I angry about? Start there. Working out. I think that's a really, really good way to reduce stress and frustration. You can even try like kickboxing classes. I did a boxing class, which I didn't really like because my arms, that was just too much for me. But, just really sitting in a space where you're just trying to figure out, okay, who am I? And I think that this right here could really help a lot of people. It's really hard to be in relationships with people when you don't know who you are and you're not aware of the stuff you're carrying, right? I think it's one thing to say, hey, this is what I'm carrying, and this is what I'm working on. And then it's like, hey, I can come to the relationship, and it's like, you know what, we can work on this together because I'm aware of what I got going on. But when you're in a space where you're just constantly projecting on your partner, that can become very heavy, right? And I know I went a little far left, but I also kind of wanted to touch on too this whole phenomenon of like personal development. Personal development is a real thing. I think we all know that. This podcast is kind of centered on personal development, and your girl has been working on herself, and that's continuous, right? But I also don't agree with this idea that you have to reach a certain place within yourself to be loved or to be in a relationship or to have healthy friendships or connections with people. That's not true. Don't lock yourself in a room because you feel like, oh, dang, I realize I got these traumas or these issues and I can't deal with people. Of course, unless you are harming yourself or harming others, by no means do I recommend that. But I'm also not a psychiatrist, so I can't tell you. But we have to be mindful that when it comes to personal development, that the first step is awareness. And from that point, that's all we really can do is continuously work on those things. But, you know, I believe in grace because first and foremost, when you're taught something, right, you pretty much you have to unlearn it. You know, and I think if you've been doing something for 20 something years, that's kind of going to be, it's a process to unlearn. And like I said, of course, you know, it's not one of those things if you're putting yourself in danger or someone else in danger, then no. But, you know, just understand that you are worthy of love. Just, you know, as long as you have awareness, of course, you know, in relationships and you know, like that's fine. I just, you know, this belief that you have to be this kind of like perfect person and this flawless person, I'm not really with that. You know, because I don't believe in that. I think that, you know, things, you are the way you are for a reason. And I think that you can work towards those things and become better. Right. So all we can ever do is progress. And that's just, you know, that's today's podcast. I got to figure out what to name this. But I hope everybody has an amazing night. And I'm going to leave you guys with your thoughts.